Welcome to Cloudy with a Chance of Trust, a podcast for digital transformation leaders where we discuss the latest cyber attack issues, enterprise security strategies, and current security events so that you can successfully accelerate network and security transformation. And now, here's what's on our mind this week.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Cloudy with a Chance of Trust. Today, we have an interesting topic to talk about, machine learning and AI. And here, who better to speak to it than Zscaler's own Howie Xu. Welcome, Howie.
Thank you, Pam. Glad to be here.
Howie, can you give our listeners a little insight into your background, into your role here at Zscaler?
Sure. I'm the VP of Machine Learning and AI at Zscaler. I came to Zscaler through the acquisition of TrustPath a few years ago. So I was the founder and the CEO of TrustPath. And we came to Zscaler family because Zscaler had an aspiration to be a leader in not just security, right, cloud security, but also AI assist security. And we have gone a long way. We can talk about more about it.
Let's jump into it. If I didn't really understand how AI or machine learning would tie into the Zscaler platform, can you explain really how does it play into the platform? Because we're a security platform. What does AI and machine learning do with that?
Our customers may or may not realize, right? They actually taking advantage of the AI machine learning technology already in our platform, from our platform. For instance, right, what does Zscaler do? We do intrusion detection. We do malware detection, right? We kind of have lots of the threats blocked for our customers. Some of the threats we block from third party, from our security research, and some of that from our AI machine learning team. So we discover new, unknown, pretty evasive threats, and we put it into our platform. You may not know, but you actually, some of the threats we blocked for you yesterday or last week were AI-based.
Wow. So can you give us a little insight into what you're working on now? What's the projects that you have underway, or where are you seeing machine learning and AI expand within Zscaler?
Right. So to answer that question, I probably would give you a little bit more complete picture of the previous one, which is, what does the platform already have, right? If you think about the cybersecurity industry, we actually have been talking about AI machine learning for many, many years, right? And malware detection, URL classification, website classification. So those are, to me, like stakeholders, like almost most of the security companies would do that, right? So we have already put that into production for many years. So that's what, we already have. So in terms of what we want to have in the future, or what we are cooking in the lab, or what we wanted to productize more is really there are two directions. One is, in terms of the threat, right, we kind of get a low-hanging fruit, right? If there is a malware family, some variation of that, using AI machine learning to predict the variations, right? We are already doing a pretty good job. But there are threats that's far more evasive, right? Think, some of the recent attacks over the last few years, they were hidden in the network for many months, right? C2, they actually caused a lot of damages, right? How do we detect those very evasive attacks sooner or earlier for our customers? That's actually a big thing, right? So essentially unknown threat detection, but more evasive ones. So that's one direction. The other direction we are doing is, forget about threat itself. No matter how good a threat detection or prevention system you have, you still want to have a good policy, meaning that who can access what, right? This is a zero trust, right? Zero trust is one of the buzzwords that everyone is talking about these days. But I would argue that very, very few vendors or very, very few customers really have taken zero trust into true reality, right? So what is zero trust? The zero trust is one user or a user can only access certain applications, no more and no less, right? Well, it's easy when it's just you and me looking at 20 applications.
Right.
What if there are 10,000 users? What if there are 10,000 applications? Who's going to make sure a user going to certain number of applications, no more and no less? Who's going to do all the work? And by the way, that person's situation changes all the time, right? And because of the dynamic nature, because of the context changes, and also the granularity cannot be, hey, everyone belonging to the engineering department should have the same policy. So those kind of things, I think how to make the policy granular, dynamic, contextual, to make that a true zero trust, it's not easy. right? So really, there are two things. One is discovering unknown threats, preventing them before they cause the damage. The other one is have very granular dynamic policies so that a customer's environment is secure. So those are the two big categories we are working on. By the way, it's not just the machine learning team is working on it. We actually collaborating with our domain experts from the security research team, from the engineering team, right? So we always say that within the team, within the company, that machine learning team cannot go very far until we actually collaborate fully with a lot of the domain experts in the company. That's what we are doing.
That's awesome. It takes a community, right? I'm sure, to stop what we see on a daily basis. I'm so excited about the whole policy configuration and the machine learning relative to that, because there isn't a day that go by that a prospect, a customer, somebody doesn't ask me, well, how do you really define policies? It's overwhelming. When you look at some organizations like my former one, there's over 100,000 employees, over 150 countries in the world. There were about just shy of 7,000 applications. How do you
100,000 applications?
No, there was 100,000 people with 7,000 applications.
7,000 applications, 100,000 people.
Right. Now it's great because for most of those listening, if you are, have the Zscaler platform, that if you deploy, right, Zscaler, you can deploy it in a discovery mode. So you can start to understand what your application portfolio is. Now that you have that data, and all this information, what do you do with it? It is overwhelming to organizations. So they actually get stuck, right? Howie, they get stuck where they don't know really this user has to have this application only at quarter end. So unless you're actually doing this constant understanding, this machine learning of what users are requiring ongoing, it's only a snapshot in time. So how good is that snapshot in time? And/or if an employee moves roles, and now they aren't part of finance any longer, right? They went to the sales group, and now they don't need all of the finance applications. They need a lot of the sales applications. And so it's really exciting to hear the work you guys are doing on the policy configuration.
And I would actually say one thing here. So Pam, you just mentioned that, right? The world is dynamic, right? People come and go, application come and go, right? And it's kind of getting faster and faster moving, right? But I would even argue that even if you consider in the old days that are slow moving, right? You don't have too many people coming and go too often, too many new applications up and down too often. Even in that world, people do not necessarily know their world, right? Meaning that, hey, how many applications, what applications where, right?
Right.
So what you are seeing is definitely a big challenge that we are trying to address. I would even say that without that, fast changing, just because you have 100,000 people, just because you have thousands of applications, people have a hard time to even know the inventory, what's going on, right?
Right.
Plus, things are dynamic. That just makes things even more interesting. So the reason I kind of mentioned this is we actually have been working with a few of our customers, right? About this policy things. This is not just a one customer, two customer. Actually, we run into multiple customers that, hey, Zscaler team, you discovered this, right? That doesn't sound right because we don't have X. And then a week later, they say, oh, yes, I didn't realize we have X. Right. So I felt like, wow, even before we're talking about things change left and right, just this X has been there for the last 2 years.
Or
people
longer,
may not, or longer.
Right? People
may not know that. Right. So we actually discover or, give intelligence, give visibility into things, not just what happened the last month.
Right. Irrelevant of size, some companies have grown through acquisitions. And in addition to that, some companies, some organizations, they have a world of lifers. And maybe it doesn't translate for everyone, but basically someone who spends their entire career at a company, basically in a role. In the multinationals, you find a lot of lifers in their roles. And when they come due for retirement, there's documentation, but it's never 100%. It never really explains the environments. There were Band-Aids put in environments, right? In addition, there are also such old applications still running that can't be fully qualified names because they're so old, and maybe they're just an IP address. So will it also, because if you run discovery mode with Zscaler, you'll actually identify where users are going because you see, right, they're connecting to this IP address. And in my former role, we would call you and say, Howie, what is this IP address you're going to? And they say, oh, Pam, it's this application we created and it's only used at month end or quarter end or something. And we'd be like, okay, and there's only 6 people using it, of course, right? So now you're going to rationalize that application. In your view and what you're working on, do you see those kind of scenarios? Because I know I've talked to a lot of companies that have that scenario. Do you foresee being able to account for those old applications with machine learning also to say, hey, these old apps should be actually put into these policies for these users to get to? Will you be able to account for that also?
Well, of course, we can do anything and everything. No, I mean, look, you mentioned a couple of interesting things. That's what AI and machine learning are shining. So you mentioned the 2 things just now. One is a lot of the knowledge is embedded in humans' brain.
Right.
If the people is gone, the person is gone, then what do we do? Right? It's a very human dependent, right? And then the other thing is the human scale, right? Just the 1 person or 10 people, how much can you do, right? You're at a mercy of the number of the resources you have, right? So human dependent, human scale, right? And then the other thing is a human scale matters in your previous point, in that, hey, I can deal with AD, I can deal with SAP, but I have a long tail.
Right.
You said you have 7,000 applications. You probably know first 7 or maybe 70 applications inside out, right?
Mm-hmm.
But do you know the next 6,000 application inside out? You don't have that, resources, energy, right? So because you are at a human scale, right? What if you can at a scale far more than human scale, right? So the way I look at AI machine learning, right? If you have a problem, right, you say, hey, if I just double the amount of my team, I can sort of solve the problem. You don't need AI machine learning. The reason you don't need AI machine learning is not a panacea. It's not like 100% accurate, right? I was actually completely joking to say we can solve anything and everything. It's the opposite, right? AI machine learning is not going to solve anything and everything. At the same time, AI machine learning can solve a problem at a scale or multiple order of magnitude scale difference, right? For instance, if this problem you had 10 people, what if you need to solve a problem, long tail, you need 10,000 people. You don't have 10,000 people. That's the perfect, sort of the use case for AI machine learning. Knowing that AI machine learning may make a mistake, but it's far better than, you don't even get a chance to look into this sort of problem, right? So I think this is the challenge and opportunity for AI machine learning for the quite foreseeable future. If you ask me, hey, Howie, do you have a policy recommendation? Do you have a malware detection that's so accurate, right? The detection rate, the precision, both are 100% or close to 100%. We don't have that technology. I don't expect we have that technology in the foreseeable near future, right? But if you ask me, hey, Howie, I have a solution, right? Somewhat with the conventional technology, somewhat with the human help, but I can only do at this scale, right? I want to solve a problem 3 order of magnitude more, right? 1,000x, 10,000x. It's not even a starting point for me to solve that problem with my current way of doing things. Can AI machine learning help? A lot of times, not always, not 100% of time, but a lot of times that's where the starting point for the AI machine learning. Does that make sense?
Totally.
So long tail is one example, right? Because it's too long. It's not even possible for your team to even take a close look at it.
I really appreciate and respect, your honesty about the fact that machine learning and AI may not solve everything. But what it will do is it gives you that point of taking data, crunching it, and then allowing certain aspects to be looked at relative to that data. So you do need someone to make a decision, right, on something that you've now crunched all this data on.
I'll give another example. So we talk about a variety of things. A threat, let's use a threat as an example, right? So we all know that, a couple of years ago, there was this thing called, solar wind attack, which impacted so many companies, right? Government agencies, Microsoft, the big, small companies, right? And it was very damaging. So if that thing, the similar kind of threat happens in the world, in our country, next time, can we detect, prevent it, right? If we use the conventional technology, it's going to be very, very hard, right? Because it's so evasive. At the same time, I would say AI machine learning is a very interesting technology to deal with that. But however, am I going to tell you, hey, use AI machine learning, it's going to detect the next solar wind precisely? Hey, here's that thing. Probably not, right? What it's going to do is, because of the AI machine learning, because of the big data technology, we can afford to look at so many signals, so many dimensions of the data. We can actually come up with a much shorter list, right? Maybe with some human pruning it, validating it, and among, let's say, 20 interesting alerts, you see, wow, this is actually something potentially very damaging, right? I think what I'm trying to say is AI machine learning is not going to pinpoint that needle in the haystack precisely, no more than no less. That's too idealistic, right? However, couple that with domain knowledge, right? Couple that with the conventional technology, couple that with our, trying and true technology together. I think we are able to advance the threat detection by a very large margin.
That's really exciting to hear because threats are getting worse, right? And how can you actually monitor the world? With Zscaler, we have so much data because of all the customer traffic, right? Going through the Zscaler cloud, taking that data, being able to crunch it at the magnitude, right, of what you're doing with your organization. Really appreciate it. Respect the fact that you're not going to solve everything. But you will be able to identify things. You'll be able to find the anomaly.
Help to identify, help to shortlist. Right.
To give it to for that someone to look at to say, hey, hold on, we need to look at this. Right. Let's flag something. And for the policy configuration, for all you listening out there, I'm excited because so many organizations are stuck there. They have a couple policies, they stay there, but their ambition is to get to more granular, in their mind, zero trust, where here's my crown jewel apps. Now, most of us know what our crown jewel apps are, but Howie, to your point, there may be 6,000 more applications that are not so important that based on machine learning, hey, this is a great bucket as a recommendation to be created. And if the system can do that, I think that can take a lot of pressure off organizations and those administrators trying to crunch things, trying to figure out what is the right way to do this. At least give them a starting point to think about something.
Yeah. I mean, that's the kind of the area that you wouldn't, possible to think about doing anything granular control, right? Now you have at least have some hope.
Absolutely.
And also, the domain experts, this is actually, we are actually leveraging day in and day out. So, the threats we were talking about, right? So almost every week or every day, right? We discover something interesting. Right. And then my engineers would go to security research team led by Deepen Design. And we say, hey, what is this, right? And then sometimes they say, wow, this is actually very, very interesting. Let's do something, right? So I started seeing a lot of those exciting collaboration, and then really makes a big difference to our customers at this point.
Absolutely. Well, listen, this has been a great conversation. I hope all of you out there have enjoyed it. Howie, thank you so much for taking the time to sit with us. Talk to us about machine learning and AI here at Zscaler.
That's our mission. So, it's an interesting mission, a few years into it. And I think that there will be far more exciting stuff coming out of Zscaler, coming out of this team, coming out of this approach for the years to come. Thank you, Pam.
We look forward to it. And to all you listening out there, thanks again for tuning in to another episode.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Cloudy with a Chance of Trust. Check back with your podcast provider regularly for more episodes. You can find Lisa Lorenzen and Pam Kubiatowski on the CXO Revolutionaries website at revolutionaries.zscaler.com or on LinkedIn. Statements by Zscaler podcasters and guests are informational only and should never be construed as legal advice. You should consult with your legal advisor on matters related to you or your business. Zscaler makes no warranties, express, implied, or statutory as to the content of this podcast, and it is provided as is. Content on this podcast may contain forward-looking statements that are current as of the date of recording and subject to change. These statements are subject to the safe harbor provisions created by the Private Securities Litigation Reform Act of 1995. Full legal disclaimers are available at revolutionaries.zscaler.com. Copyright 2022.